We just tested the Hisense U7G, and right off the bat, we can say that it's a great TV. But considering the relatively small price difference between the U7G and its bigger brother, the U8G, is it still a good deal, or should you just spend more for the U8G? And what exactly are you getting more on the U8G? Hi, I'm Kelsey at TestStarRatings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Basically, the U8G is the second highest 4K model Hisense is releasing in 2021. There's the flagship U9DG, the U8G is just a step below, and then there's the U7G. There's also the U6G, but that's more of a budget TV. You can check out our written review here. To compare the U7G and the U8G, we'll go through the individual results, but we won't touch on everything because there are a lot of similarities. As usual, we'll start with the design and do a quick overview before getting into the individual test results. For the U8G, we bought the 55-inch, and it's also available in a 65-inch. For the U7G, we bought the 65-inch, and it's available in a 55 or a 75-inch. We expect the various sizes to have very similar picture quality. In Canada, they're known as the U88G and the U78G respectively. We don't know any equivalent models outside of North America because Hisense has a different lineup in other regions. There's an international model called the U7G Pro, but that's a completely different model advertised to have a higher peak brightness and 144 Hz refresh rate. Alright, let's start by looking at the design. From the front, the only difference is the color of the bottom bezel and the stand. As to which stand looks better, that's entirely up to you. The only thing you need to know here is that the U7G's feet can be set closer to accommodate smaller TV stands. The backs look different, but the ports are in the same place. We'll talk more about them later. They have the same type of cable management with these hooks behind the feet. The build quality is about the same, but the U8G just feels a bit more solid and doesn't wobble as much. There's some flex on the back around the VESA mounting holes on both TVs, but that shouldn't cause any issues for most people. We're not going to touch on the smart features because they're all the same. They both run on Android TV and have the same remote. You can check out our U8G review video for more info. Before we get to the test results, let's just quickly look at the overall performance of the two TVs and what you're actually paying for if you choose to go with the U8G. Essentially, you're paying for better picture quality and motion handling. And that's because almost all other features are the same, like refresh rate, VRR, console compatibility, and so on. We'll get into more details about the differences in picture quality, so let's start with the contrast. Both the U7G and U8G use VA panels with an outstanding contrast ratio, so you'll get really deep blacks on either one. The U7G does score a bit better in terms of native contrast, but that could just be a panel variance. There's a full array local dimming feature, but it's not as effective as the U8G at improving the black levels. So the U8G can get slightly deeper blacks when local dimming is on. As for the local dimming's performance, the U8G also comes out ahead. Although we tested the 65-inch U7G and the 55-inch U8G, they're both pretty close when it comes to the number of dimming zones. So we're talking 90 dimming zones on the U7G versus 132 zones on the 55-inch U8G. Overall, the U8G has less blooming and better transitions between dimming zones. By the way, the number of dimming zones changes depending on the size of the TV. We don't expect it to change the performance much on the U7G, but it's likely better on the 65-inch U8G because it has a lot more dimming zones. In game mode, the local dimming performs exactly as outside of game mode on both TVs. In terms of screen brightness, they both get very bright, so you shouldn't have any problems with glare. The U8G can reach higher peak brightness, and it's visibly brighter in most scenes when we compare them side by side, even though it measures less in our real scene test. As for the reflection handling, the U8G is better at reducing the intensity of the reflections, especially direct reflections, like when you have a bright light source directly opposite of the TV. Unfortunately, they both have narrow viewing angles, which is expected for VA panels. This means that you have to be almost directly in front of the TV to get the best viewing experience. Otherwise, the image looks washed out when you view it from the side. The U8G has a better color gamut and volume than the U7G, but it's not a huge difference. Basically, the U8G can display brighter and more saturated greens and blues. Our U8G is more color accurate out of the box than the U7G, but that can vary between individual units. If you watch a lot of HDR content, then the good news is that both TVs can get very bright to deliver a great experience. Without getting too much into the numbers, what you need to know is that the UAG can get brighter to make highlights pop more in HDR content, but the U7G is more accurate. This is because the UAG overshoots the target brightness and makes the image look slightly washed out. Like the local dimming, the HDR brightness stays the same in game mode on both TVs, so there's no change there. There's a fair amount of dirty screen effect on both TVs, which can be distracting when watching sports or wide panning shots. But again, this varies between units, so yours might be different. Black uniformity is a lot better on the UAG. As you can see in these pictures, it has a lot less blooming than the U7G around the test cross. Okay, now let's talk about motion handling. The UAG definitely comes out ahead in terms of response time, which leads to a clearer image with less ghosting. They also have the same motion features, like black frame insertion and motion interpolation. Subjectively, the motion interpolation looks pretty similar on both, but they're not as good as the top-end models from other companies like Sony and Samsung. Both TVs have 120 Hz refresh rate and support variable refresh rate for gaming. Speaking of gaming, input lag is fantastic on both. It's slightly lower at 120 Hz on the UAG, but it's a tiny difference that most people won't notice. Except for 4K at 120 Hz in Dolby Vision, there are no other compatibility issues with the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Of course, there's still no VRR support on the PS5. You'll have to wait for Sony to implement that in a firmware update. If you want to use the TV as a monitor, they both support all common resolutions. You just have to force a custom resolution for 1440p. The inputs are exactly the same. They're even positioned the same way. So you get 4 HDMIs, 2 of them are HDMI 2.1, 2 USBs, a 3.5mm analog audio out, a digital optical audio out, a coaxial, a composite with an included adapter, and finally an Ethernet port. eARC is supported on HDMI 3 if you want to hook up a soundbar or home theater system. If you're just using the built-in speakers, the UAG sounds better. It has more bass extension and sounds more balanced. So overall, it's safe to say that it's absolutely worth spending more for the UAG. The extra money that you're spending is going towards better picture quality and motion handling. This is not to say that the U7G is bad in any way. It's just very good upselling on Hisense's part. So that's it. What do you think of the Hisense U7G and UAG? Which one would you get? Let us know below. You can check out all the measurements on our website. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel. You can also become an insider on the website for early access to our latest results. Thank you for watching and see you next time.